narrative to some of the things that cause anxiety and depression. You are unique, you are beautiful, you are brave, and we got you. We are here with you, we stand alongside you, and you can accomplish anything that your heart desires.
Hi, I'm Ansley Stevenson, Capital Improvements Project Manager, and we're back at Mifflin High School. Teachers have returned today, and we're here amidst the hustle and bustle of teachers unpacking and setting up their rooms. We wanted to take you on a guided tour one last time to see the finished product, so come along. We're here in the new Student Support Services area of Mifflin High School. Before, these spaces were scattered throughout the building, and now students and counselors have a private space to access all of those student support services. We're sitting here in one of our 3 new extended learning areas at Mifflin High School. They're all furnished slightly differently to allow a different posture for students and staffs. Some of them are more focused around technology, some of them are more focused around lounge and conversation to allow students and teachers to pick the space that suits their needs for the day. We're standing in one of our completely refreshed classrooms here at Mifflin High School. Throughout, you'll see new flooring, new ceilings, new lighting, our new sound system that allows for an even sound distribution throughout the whole classroom, and furniture that was customized for each teacher to suit their needs. Looking at the refreshed auditorium space, you'll see new seating, new theater curtains, new lighting and sound system to support our next big production here at Mifflin High School. Here in the relocated weight room at Mifflin High School, we have combined the weight room and the health classroom. So you'll see state-of-the-art, new weight equipment combined with flexible furnishings to allow us to use this space for after-school events, as well as after-school weight and strength training. Moving into the art and construction technology spaces, which were both refreshed here, you can see in the art room, we've got completely new seating for 72 students, which supports both of our art classes. We've added a lot of built-in cabinets to support all of those art materials needed to do all of the different studio functions for our high school art students. Looking at our construction technology space, you'll see a brand new dust collection around the perimeter. This will allow us to keep a safe, clean environment to teach our students the critical skills to become part of our modern construction technology world. At this project, we left no stone unturned. As you walk through the building, you will see upgrades throughout. Our hallways have been completely painted, upgrading with new ceilings and new lighting. Our cafeteria space has been refreshed, all new furniture, all new flooring, and all new lighting. Our brand new gymnasium space has been equipped with everything we need for the next big game. We have new bleachers, new basketball hoops, and a completely refinished gymnasium floor. When you walked through Mifflin High School last school year, it was a dark, outdated, uninspiring space for our young learners. When you walk through this year, you'll see a bright, refreshed space that allows our students to dream big and achieve more this school year and many school years to come.
The record last year was 3-10 because we only had 5 players, and the record this year is 7-9.
We was gonna make a team at Lynn McKinley if we had a coach or if we didn't, and we're having people come to our games to come watch us play.
Share the ball a little bit more now, and I actually see the team as like a sisterhood.
To go into an actual program that does have those type of losses, you feel like there's no expectation. And I seen from previous games that I had looked at that they actually were talented.
Araciana, she loves to get buckets. Shy, she's strong with the ball. She'll body anybody. Faith, she brings the energy if we feeling down.
Denny is doing real good. I love Denny. I got to play with my sister this year. She's a freshman.
Marion Franklin, Christiana Towns, she had 35 points, 25 rebounds, and 10 steals. She averages 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 steals per game. Her Mifflin game that we had, Tamaya Harrington, she had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 13 steals.
It makes me feel more confident. Start varsity as a freshman and play the whole game and make a lot of points with my teammates and a lot of assists.
Changing the culture means a lot to me. It makes me feel real good that people aren't just seeing Linden girls as trash. We here Monday through Saturday.
The March 9th meeting of the Policy and Governance Committee meeting is now to begin. Mr. Williams, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Ingalls?
Present.
Ms. Adair?
Present.
Dr. Miranda?
Present.
Ms. Ellingson?
Present.
Dr. Lucky?
Present.
Ms. Keys?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Vogel? Here. We have a quorum and
We have a quorum and perfect attendance. That's great. I want to start by first welcoming 2 new members to the committee. So we have Ms. Janice Keys, who is joining our committee. We are thrilled to have her.
Thank you.
And then we have Dr. Miranda, who is the board president, joining the committee as well. All right, so the first item of business is to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2025 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motioned and seconded. Would you call the roll, Mr. Williams?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Ms. Keys?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So we'll go ahead and move into our substance of the board agenda. Section 3 of the agenda is the policy presentations for the committee. These are the policy drafts that we will actually be listening to presentations on and evaluating the substance and the language of the policy itself. And then in Section 4, that is really just like a notice section to let the committee know that there are policies that will be recommended to the board for board consideration. So we will not necessarily discuss them in detail or have any presentations on them, but they are notices. Do have a couple of updates on some of those. And then we'll have a progress report on the VCAP update, which is a policy, actually doesn't exist in any one policy, but a topic that we discussed at our last Policy and Governance Committee meeting. And we will have an update from our administration tonight about where we're probably going to go with regard to that topic and where it falls in probably multiple policies throughout the system. And after that, we will adjourn. So we will go ahead and kick into item 3.1, which is the draft on the artificial intelligence policy. As a reminder, Ohio House Bill 96, which is the state budget bill, required that all Ohio traditional public school districts, community schools, and STEM schools adopt a formal artificial intelligence policy by July 1st, 2026. So that is state law. The policy must address the appropriate use of AI by students and staff for educational purposes. A large work group has been meeting regularly and has collaborated to solidify policy recommendations for presentation to the policy committee. The policy draft is attached to the agenda, which you can find on board docs. And Mr. Lockhart will present the work of the group and the draft of the policy. Just also want to note that Mr. Lockhart has notified the entire work group of this meeting, and we're very excited to hear your report out and progress on the topic. We know that you've been meeting quite a bit with a wide variety of employees and folks in the district, and so I want to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairperson, Vice President Ingles, President Miranda, our auditor, Mr. O'Connor, and all the distinguished members of the Governance Committee. Before I speak about the policy itself, I want to take a moment to more fully recognize the work group whose sustained efforts made this completed draft possible. The policy represents months of thoughtful discussion, careful review, and collaborative problem-solving by a diverse group. Members of the work group invested significant time not only in understanding the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence, but in wrestling with its practical implications for classrooms, students, educators, and district operations. They engaged in difficult conversations about risk, opportunity, equity, privacy, and even environmental impact. And they did so with a shared commitment to getting this right for our students and staff. This policy is not a product of a single office or a single perspective. It reflects the sustained effort of cross-functional work group that brought together instructional leaders, technology professionals, governance and legal voices, and practitioners who understand the daily realities of classrooms, schools, and district operations. That collaborative approach is not incidental. It is embedded directly into the policy itself, which explicitly calls for ongoing stakeholder engagement and continuing work group involvement as AI evolves. The result of that work is a policy that takes a balanced, people-centered approach to artificial intelligence. From the outset, the policy makes clear that AI is intended to be it is intended to enhance human interaction and instruction and not replace it, in that all AI-driven decisions require human review. The framing establishes an important guardrail. AI is treated as a tool to support learning, teaching, and operating efficiency, and not as an authority or substitute for professional judgment or for student effort. The policy is also intentionally specific in the key areas where clarity matters. It provides clear definitions that distinguish between artificial intelligence broadly and generative AI in particular, ensuring the commonly embedded tools such as grammar assistance, predictive text, and accessibility supports are not intentionally swept into overly restrictive rules, and this avoids the risk of hyper-focused policy that could stifle legitimate instructional and operational uses of technology. Another core strength of the policy is its emphasis on AI literacy. Rather than treating AI solely as a compliance issue, this policy directs the administration to build an AI literacy for both students and educators through curriculum integration, professional learning, and guidance on safe and responsible use. This positions the district not to just manage risk, but to prepare students for a world they are already entering, a world where AI literacy will be a foundational skill. The policy also establishes strong expectations around data privacy, security, and procurement. Any AI tool used by the district must comply with existing student and staff data protections, including FERPA and other state and federal laws, and must undergo a formal vetting and risk assessment process. Importantly, the policy explicitly prohibits the use of AI tools that have not been vetted and have contracts, guaranteeing data privacy and non-use of district data for training. These provisions ensure that innovation does not come at the expense of trust and confidentiality. Ethical use and academic integrity are addressed with equal clarity. The policy recognizes that acceptable use will vary by context, grade level, subject area, and assignment, but it places responsibility on educators to clearly articulate expectations and on students to develop their own knowledge and understanding. AI may support learning, but it may not replace student work. An unauthorized use is treated consistently with existing academic integrity and student policies. This reinforces authentic learning while still allowing room for thoughtful, transparent use where appropriate. I also want to emphasize that this policy has been informed by listening, not just drafting. On Wednesday of last week, I met directly with students at one of our high schools to hear their perspective on AI and appropriate use. They had already, and how they've already encountered it, how they think about appropriate use, and what guidance they believe adults should provide. The student voice reinforces the direction of this policy. AI is not a future issue for students. It is a present reality, and they are asking for clarity, consistency, and responsible guidance. Finally, I would note that when the state released its model AI policy, it specifically called for the creation of an AI work group structured almost exactly like the one this district created and used. While I can't say our work directly informed the state's model, the alignment is striking. It suggests that this district approach AI governance in a way that reflects emerging best practices, collaborative, iterative, and grounded in both innovation and responsibility. As we move forward, it's important to emphasize that the adoption of this policy is not the end of the work, but the foundation for it. In alignment with the AI Workgroup Charter, this work will continue through the development of clear administrative guidelines, intentional and ongoing professional development for educators and staff, and regular review of emerging AI advancements. The workgroup will remain engaged to ensure implementation remains responsive, human-centered, and aligned with district priorities, student needs, and evolving technology. This approach allows the board to set durable expectations through policy while ensuring the district has flexibility and expertise needed to adapt responsibly as AI continues to change. So that's the presentation portion of it, and I really would like to thank the work group. Spent a lot of time, brought a lot of diverse ideas intentionally. We had that group, so we had a lot of different voices, and I think we have a much better product at the end of it. And I thank you all for giving me a little bit of space to wait for the model policy to come out. It actually really did align with a lot of the work that we were already doing, but it makes it easier for us to know that we're in compliance with the state, since our policy looks a whole lot like theirs, including our AI work group. So if you have any questions at this time.
And Mr. Lockhart, how many people were a part of that work group?
50 people. We had a total of 50 people that signed up.
That's great. All right, any questions from the committee for Mr. Lockhart on behalf of the work group?
I had a question.
Mr. Vogel?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Lockhart, for the presentation, all your hard work. I guess my question was, you know, you said that you can't the group will be, or the district will be managing and assessing risk of different AI products. I guess given the integration of AI products and so many other softwares that people or regularly come into contact with, or even search engines and things online, how does the district plan to actually assess the risk of all those products that educator or student might come into contact with during the day? Is that feasible?
That's a great question. It is not feasible. It is not feasible for us to review everything that's out there, which is why the policy specifically states that the only acceptable systems to use are the ones that have been vetted. So we have systems that we use that we know already have AI, iReady, some of the other ones. We have some internal tools like Copilot that we vetted. We have a contract in place in agreement with those companies that data will be safe. The auditor will appreciate this. Also, as part of another policy that's going to be coming up, we're going to be required to evaluate all software that's used within the school district and assess a rank to it based upon the safeness well beyond AI, which is why it's also embedded in here. So that being said, we do have some technical tools with some of our filtering where we try to limit access to certain tools, but none of those systems are ever perfect. So our direction to the students and to the staff is these are the approved systems for you to use, and the policy allows us to enforce that to say you're not allowed to use those systems specifically with student data or with district data, or you're in violation of the policy. Yeah, the same way that kids can bring phones in. We know that they leave them once they start the school day, but when they bring the phone into the school, it opens an avenue to them having access to materials that we never provided them in the school because it goes directly to the cell phone company. So this would be the same way. It's our expectation, and I know that our students are going to do it because they always step up and perform, that they will discipline themselves to work within the guidelines that we've established.
And Mr. Lockhart, how will the educators in the classroom be informed of what platforms are or are not appropriate to use as that evolves?
Yes. We will continue to use the website that we have where we have the software that's vetted for student use, and we'll expand that out to include all software that's been vetted and that we have contracts in place with. Again, one of the other things that's happening is another part of HB 96 is our cybersecurity policy that's going to have to be written. And it's also got some of those things baked in where we have to put those controls in place to make sure that we're not exposing student data or district sensitive data. So it's really going to go hand in hand with this. We also, I guess I should add to that, also working with technology and learning. They've already developed a lot of professional development, and they're going to continue to develop that. So again, it's not just a technology department initiative. We have our curriculum department involved also, since they're the ones that are working in school to make sure that they're bringing that curriculum lens to this work.
Any questions?
I do have a question. I think I gave this comment when we had an earlier discussion. And also, I love the way that this is laid out. It seems really thoughtful, and so I don't want to skip over the positive feedback. But the thing that I'm looking for, again, is there's so much use of AI that can happen that does not relate to teaching and learning, like asset management, which I don't want to offend any asset managers in the audience, but some of it is like really tricky stuff where when you have as many assets as an entity like CCS does, you actually could really benefit from a tool that helps you see the finest detail in just a sea of information. So I think that the district could stand to benefit from getting clear on that, because someone could easily put that, maybe it falls under confidential district information, but things that you don't want living out on the cloud for all users of LLMs to be able to pull from or to accidentally understand. But that isn't broached in this policy. So I guess my first question to the chair otherwise is, what are we required, what is the actual task handed to us by the state? Is it that we identify how AI will be used across all activities? Is it you get to choose on your own what level, what the scope of the conversation is? This is very good on the teaching and learning piece, but I do see that gap there. and you might want to be prescriptive with your own team about how it could apply to those use cases.
Yep. On page 2 of 5, the center section, procurement and evaluation of AI tools. That section is not limited to classroom technology. That is across the board. That for any procurement and evaluation of AI tools, there has to be a vetting process. So we tried to incorporate that also.
I think she's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's not saying the procurement of AI tools, but instead in the procurement department of the organization itself when they are engaging in the act of procurement.
Yes, thank you. So once again, behind the scenes, we are working with the purchasing department to make some modifications to the purchasing handbook so that once again, all software procurements, anything that we use within the district has to go through that vetting process. Again, as part of that cybersecurity that's going to tie into this, all of that data has to be protected, whether it's associated with artificial intelligence or not. So that's another process and step that we're currently working on with them, making some changes to that to prepare us for that next policy that's going to be coming where it's going to be a requirement that that's in place. And then we also have a section I was looking for while we were talking. Actually, there's a couple places at the bottom that talks about non-academic use of AI, which is still more student-facing. I will give you that. But the I'm looking for the section where we're talking, but basically, with those two guardrails, students and staff are expected to use the vetted systems. And if they're putting our student information or our district information in some language model that they have on their own, that's going to leave them in violation of this policy. It's not something that they're allowed to do, is pick something off the shelf and just put our data in it, whether it's AI driven or not.
And so just to clarify a little further, so as I read this, it struck me as a document that is 90% about teaching and learning about what's happening in instruction. And so if I'm someone who works on the auditor's team, do I pick this up and know it's for me? I may not. And so I think maybe to get a little bit more tactical on what I'm suggesting here, a statement about the applicability of this not just to your educators, but to all staff. That would be my recommendation for that.
Thank you.
Chair Ingles, are we talking about this policy overall in broad sense, or are we getting into like granular language?
Both.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, and.
Okay. Mr. Lockhart, I wondered about at the bottom of page 3, where it says AI-enabled tools may be used to support student work such as brainstorming or feedback. Up above, you talk about teacher approval for things. Do you see brainstorming or feedback, or I should say like any integration of AI tools into any level of assignment as needing teacher permission?
Yes. Yes, I think there are some carve-outs in there for, again, some of the accessibility, some of the basic spell checkers and some of those things. But yes, in order to provide that true AI literacy, I think it's going to be important that the teachers and the students are learning to understand what the limits and restrictions are on how to use AI properly, so that once again, it's not becoming a replacement for that human learning interaction, but rather a supplement. So yes.
I think that there might be some sections, and I can maybe write those down, where that could be a little bit clearer.
Okay.
Just to tie in that those elements also require teacher approval, because I just think for some subjects, brainstorming, feedback, or citation generation is the assignment, and you wouldn't want that to be considered as this like ancillary, non-teacher approved action, since that is the majority of the assignment.
Okay. And which paragraph is that, so I can mark it up on my copy?
I'll just do this. I got the here and here where the 2 parts.
Do you mind talking aloud where you're seeing that, Dr. Lockhart, just so we can?
Paragraph 4 on page 3 of 5.
Thank you.
Where it talks about the teachers properly disclosing, and then paragraph 11, which is the single sentence, use of tools that have not been approved is not permitted.
Thank you. Board Member Adair.
I just want to lean in a little bit on what Kelsey was talking about. Where are we in this? If we're on page 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 paragraphs down where it's talking about, no, sorry, 8 paragraphs. Hold on, no, I lost it.
Yep.
No, I lost the paragraph.
The employee shall not input sensitive, confidential.
It's talking about using, like, staff should use, here it is, the licensure code of conduct for Ohio educators. So it says expectations for educators, staff, and third-party use should align with district priorities. So staff here, this goes back to what Kelsey was kind of saying, staff is all-encompassing of so many different professions other than just teaching. And so then we have the next sentence that talks about the educator alignment to the code of conduct for Ohio educators. And there might be other types of professional code of conducts, whether that be auditors or attorneys or, you know, other professionals other than educators that work in our district. And so if this really is a policy that touches business and operations, I do think it needs to be more clear. And maybe it's just a separate section even that talks about the business operational use of this to separate it out a little bit.
Okay.
Because those people are, or could, depending on their job, also be using student information. And so they would be covered by some of this, but they might not be. And so we want to make sure that, you know, as it says, we're being good examples and role models, everyone in the organization should, but making sure that, you know, if it is intended that it, you know, it applies to everyone here in our district, that is really clear.
Okay. Heard. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Who will name the members of the work group? Is that the superintendent?
So far, it's actually been me, the CIO. I sent out solicitation for the group to join, and basically we accepted everybody that wanted to be part of the group, so we've not rejected anybody. So most likely going forward, it would remain in my office and not to put that on anybody else since we've already gotten this started and going.
I really like being able to have that model of accepting everyone because I think it's important to have diversity of thought on AI, that we don't just get a lot of people who want it advanced. So if maybe there's a way to spell out that could continue, or some way to protect like diversity of thought of work group members.
Yeah. I'm surprised she's not here tonight. But we've had one voice that's been very cautious about AI from the very beginning. We've also had, here's what's interesting, environmental. We've had several conversations about environmental impact on AI. And when we went to the high school, we heard those same concerns and those same voices coming from the students. They wanted to make sure that their data was protected. They wanted to make sure that we were considerate of the environmental impact also. So it's definitely top of mind to have those, and I will insist on keeping that diversity, both that are pro-AI and those that are skeptics also, to make sure that we stay true to what we need to do for the district.
Ms. Ellingson.
Thank you. Just another question. I had students on the mind, particularly we just started to go there. I'm glad to hear that there was some involvement. Can you just explain in more detail, were they members of the working group? What kind of feedback have they provided? Did they see this policy and have any concerns about about whether it's practicable based on how AI is integrated into everything?
Sure. I'll give you a little history on the work group. So we started it last year, and we were planning on moving forward with completely different, for those of you who were here before, it was split up into 3 different policies. And at that time, when they announced that the state was going to put out a model policy, we decided to put a hold on actually writing the policy. But in the meantime, we kept meeting and kept talking about the things that we would like to see in a final version. And late December, the state put out their model policy, and a lot of this is based on their model policy. We did add some things to it, take some things that we felt were more our flavor here in Columbus, again, with that work group adding in, chiming in with some back and forth. So we had a lot of discussion around this, and this is what we came up with. So we had 2 reviews of this policy. The first one was in January, where we had a live meeting and review, where we sat down and actually went through it and kind of marked it up. We then sent out an email to the rest of the group to say, hey, go through this again with a Google form where they could add their comments to that. We then reviewed that, made those changes to it, and then last month met yet again to look at it one more time. How you like this, and then did the same thing, feedback, and get those form submissions before it got to this final part. So it has gone through those iterations of making sure that the voices are heard and captured in here.
Sorry, I didn't hear when students were involved in those conversations.
Oh, students were not. Students were not involved in the actual policy. We just got their voice as far as hearing from them just recently. Because of the timeline, we weren't really able to get students meaningfully involved in this portion of it. But as we've said in both the policy and in the presentation, it's an ongoing work. So we'll be developing administrative guidelines, we'll be developing professional development, and so the student voice will then have a chance to be heard during those iterations of how should we, actually teach AI literacy? How should we consider building other safety and controls in for them? So that work will continue.
Just permit me one more follow-up here. I just started using Copilot last week. I finished my internal struggle with AI, and I said, girl, you need to expand your capacity, and so I started using it. The reason I'm asking that is, one, I don't need to tell anybody at this table here that it's always good to consult the end users of things when you're building policy, but also, young folks are probably the best users of AI, and so as an AI neophyte, am looking at this policy, and I think about the way that Google, some friendly Googling in the classroom, and it pops up an AI summary. And so I really think that we should have those eyes, the AI fluent among us. I count you among those people. Don't hear me wrong here, but the people who are going to be putting this into practice, to actually ask them to work within the bounds of this, to test drive it, because I feel like it's going to be hard. And one thing I think you want to leave a lot to what teachers and students and building leadership can work out among each other, and I don't want to bring everything up to the high level, which slows us all down from our own beautiful creativity. But if this is hard to put into practice, the rule book gets thrown at somebody. But is it a practice that anybody could really uphold? So that is the question I'm asking myself right now, and I would love to have students help us answer it.
Yes, it is the intention to continue to listen to student input, student voice. And one of the challenges with artificial intelligence and the way that it's changing, it is truly a disruptive force. None of this is comfortable for any of us because it keeps changing. Even the conversations that we had 6 months ago are completely different now. We see it in our geopolitics with our Department of Defense, Department of War, wrestling with who they will allow to have in their system and whether or not they will allow them to, the AI agents, to actually operate weapons. It's happening at every level, and our students, again, from having talked to the first group and we're scheduling the next group, they're wrestling with it. They're wrestling with, what is my future going to look like? One student, she's an artist, she says, I don't know what my future is going to look like. If AI can make art, what does that mean for me? So they're wrestling with it. We're wrestling with it as adults, saying this is the first time I used it. I still don't trust it. I don't know what it's supposed to do. And so I think part of that is why this work group work continues, is that it's going to change. It's going to change quickly. It's going to change how we teach classes. It's going to change how we learn in classes, especially for our coding classes. A year ago, coding was sitting in front of the computer typing in code. Today, it's sitting in front of a computer, talking to it and telling it what kind of program you want it to build, and then telling it, no, change this, no, change that. that's within a year. And so that's why it's a difficult job to put down in a policy exactly what we're going to be doing for the next probably year, because I don't think you all are going to invite me back for another year to want to keep rewriting AI policy every time something changes in the market. So that's why it's going to be important to have those administrative guidelines. Those things are a little more flexible that we as a staff can say, okay, we need to add this now. Okay, this was not in our original one talking about non-consensual intimate imagery. You know, it wasn't a thing when we were talking about it. We talked about deep fakes. But now some of those systems will generate it so easy that we have to say that, and the non-academic use to say, hey, you can't throw your friend's picture into an AI engine and make it look like they're in just any embarrassing situation, let alone a non-consensual intimate imagery. So it's one of those things that just keeps changing, and I think that's why it's important that we start with a policy and we start teaching our students the responsible use, because quite frankly, they're already using it. They're already going home using it. They've got it on their phones, they're using it. And while we have some tools that allow us to limit it here within the district, it's the wild, wild west for them once they get home and they're on their own networks. So that's why I think it's important that even though it's a difficult and a disruptive technology, we have to start somewhere with where we start teaching them and our staff. Again, it's new to so many of us. And I'll say us because it keeps changing for me too. So I think it's important that we do that hard work, and that's why, again, I'll stay at the lead of it and make sure that we're still pushing this thing forward constantly and staying up on it and reiterating when we need to, and coming back to the committees and the board when we need to say where we're at, what we're doing, and what comes next.
Yeah, and I'll echo the sentiment about involvement of students. On page 2, it does say the work group may include a long list of people, including students, and I would just challenge us to say we should include them because they are the best users of the product and are definitely a voice worth having on any team that is developing fungible and movable administrative guidelines. Board Member Adair?
That's actually what I was going to say, Vice President Ingalls. And I do want to say again, like, board policies are, you know, the guardrails to this work, because as you just said, it's ever changing. And as, you know, long as we have what is required by law to be in it, and we have things that are important to our district, which the work group has, you know, put in here, it's going to be those administrative guidelines that are going to be kind of more important in this next step about how do we implement. And so I foresee that we are going to have to continue to bring this policy forward every year or so because things will change. The work group is going to have more suggestions. And so, you know, for me, I'm looking at it as that guardrail document, and I think that you've all done a great job on it.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. And I heard the comments about the students, so I will intentionally start to schedule those so that you all can see the pattern of when those are happening and what schools we're going to. Started with the high school, so we need to get a middle school, elementary schools in there and get all those voices heard and at the table.
Mr. Vogel.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lockhart, thanks again for this work. The one question, as we're talking about sort of student involvement in the working group, you know, I noticed that in this discussion of the working group, there's not much about sort of how the working group, sort of data from the working group will be shared with this committee or with the board. You know, I think it might be interesting, not necessarily in policy, but I would sort of suggest that it would be helpful for you to sort of set a regular cadence of sharing information with this board about kind of what the results of those working group discussions are, like emerging feedback as it comes from students, faculty, and staff. I think this committee would like to hear about that so that we can consider, you know, if future changes to the policy are necessary. And I think the whole community would benefit from that as well.
Okay. I would serve at the will of the board of however you all would like for me to communicate that frequency and content.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will go ahead and make the motion that this committee vote to advance the policy as written to the board with consideration and the advice given, and that the committee or the work group consider between now and when it actually hits the board table, if there should be additional language regarding other types of licensure requirements for other employees found on page 3. I believe that was it. Specific language.
You wanted to change may. Did you say that for student involvement in the work group? I think you were saying that the current language is may involve, and you wanted that to be more.
I don't think she said that. I think she just
Oh,
emphasizing.
Oh, I see. Okay. No, it's.
I don't.
I'll
I'm not
second.
requesting it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Single,
Yes.
Severe,
Yes.
Miranda,
Yes.
Ellingson,
Yes.
Keys,
Yes.
Dr. Lucky,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Oldham.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you to you and the whole 50-person work group who has poured so much time into this. We
Thanks for
appreciate
watching.
it.
Thank
I
you
also
all.
want to call out one of our educators, Courtney Johnson, who is the one who originally brought this issue to us and really pounded the drum about the need for this policy as soon as possible. So I want to thank her for her efforts as well. We will go ahead and move into item 3.2, which is the presentation on the draft of the quality points policy related to the middle and high school determination of grades. I believe that this presentation today will be handled by Dr. Keith Harris, Clarence Daniels, Dr. Brian Morton, and Ms. Heidi Baxter. We may have additional folks from the team here, so I apologize if I missed your name. A district-wide team has been working on the topic of quality points for an extended period. This team finalized their policy recommendation on January 28th and is here to present their work in the draft policy, which is policy 5421, middle and high school determination of grades. While there is no immediate compliance issue here or legal compliance issue here, this policy is of great importance and a high priority for the Board of Education. And in fact, the Board of Education did instruct me last year as Policy and Governance Chair to bring this forward for consideration and review. So we have done just that. A work group was formed, and we will now hear from the work group about, one, what is quality points? How the heck does that even work? When did it make sense? Give us a little bit of the history. And then also, what is your recommendation moving forward? So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, Policy and Governance Committee members. I would like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to share the work of the Middle and High School Determination of Grades Policy Committee with you tonight. I would like to recognize all of the committee members who worked diligently to complete the work that we will discuss with you tonight. The committee was a collaborative one composed of CEA leadership, CCS teachers, who of course are CEA bargaining unit members, and CCS administrators. All members provided invaluable expertise and commitment to this work. They are all here tonight. I would like to quickly recognize them. Co-chairs, Dr. Brian Morton and yours truly. CCS administrators, Dr. Jason Johnson, Mr. Adam Clausen, Mr. Greg Winewski. CCS teachers, Ms. Heidi Baxter, Mr. Clarence Daniels, Mr. Keith Emmerich, and Mr. John Harrison. And finally, Mr. Phil Hayes, Vice President, CEA. Thank you, committee members. Our committee consistently met over the course of 4 months looking at all the components of Policy 5421, seeking to provide clarity and address concerns regarding the current state of the policy. Our initial meeting was on October 1st, 2025, and our 7th and last meeting was on January 28th, 2026. Mr. Daniels.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Clarence Daniels. During our time together, we focused on a full review of the current policy to identify possible gaps and negative impacts on students. We reviewed 22 other school districts' grading policies, including the Ohio 8. Through robust discussion and analysis of such policies, the committee worked line by line, suggesting updates to the policy to provide language clarification and other changes. We will share our recommendations to Policy 5421 this evening. While all recommendations will not be presented tonight, all changes are available in the submitted documents. In closing, this was an all-star team committee effort, bringing insight and perspective from area superintendents, directors, principals, CA leadership, and general educators. Everyone brought valuable viewpoints, and there was a strong sense of respect for each other's feedback throughout this entire process.
Policy 5421 was adopted in 2015, solidified the usage of quality points with a plus-minus scale to determine final grades for students in both middle and high school. It was later revised in 2022 to update language regarding calculation of quality points and remove the terms around interim grades to reflect the agreements in the CEA contract. Additionally, our committee wanted to review the current policy to align our grading practices with policies and practices of similar school districts. Through this alignment practice, it was important that our committee weighed all options inclusive of both quality points and percentage average models, along with the possible implications and impact on students. Now, we will highlight our recommendations that will have the greatest impact to Policy 5421, also known as the Quality Points Policy. Based on current policy, it is very complicated for students, parents, and teachers to calculate the final grades using the Quality Points method. In some cases, a student could earn a 65% one quarter and a 0% another quarter and still pass the overall grade, the overall class. Switching to the percentage average method, students will have to earn, on average, a minimum of 60% both quarters to pass the overall class. This will be more reflective of the mastery and work completed by the student. Removal of the graduating senior failing grade section in this policy, as there is already a policy in place, 5460.02, that currently addresses students at risk of not earning a high school diploma. Updates to that policy are underway, and this section of the policy will be better suited in Policy 5460.02. Adding an A+ to the grading scale will provide consistency throughout the plus-minus grading scale. Removal of the following sections will be as a result of the change from quality points to percentage average, as the calculations are directly related to quality points. The replacement of the calculation reflects the calculation method based on the averaging of quarter percentages. Aligning the course drop and addition dates provides consistency and clear language around when an already enrolled student can request to add or drop a class. We will now have Ms. Baxter, who will explain how quality point calculations occur.
Thank you. Here you can see a portion of the quality point calculation scale. Take a moment and look. Quality point calculation uses a weighted average for the determination of final grades. For a course granting 1 credit or more, the quarter grades are doubled and added to a final exam score, then divided by 9. The same is calculated for a course granting fewer than 1 credit, yet divided by 2. The quality point calculation holds many complexities and confusion for our community and students. The committee before you today recommends that Columbus City Schools consider the transition to the percentage average calculation for its simplicity and focus on commonality with many other school districts in the state of Ohio. As you can see, the A+ has been added to this scale, recognizing the efforts of students, yet does not change the weight. This is also in line with the policies from other districts reviewed by this committee. The percentage average calculation recognizes year-long and semester courses. This calculation also brings a determined score value for final exams. For the year-long courses with a final exam, the final grade will be calculated with each quarter weighted at 22.5% and the final exam holding a 10% weighted value. For year-long courses that do not offer a final exam, each quarter will be weighted at 25%. Semester courses, whether the first semester or second, are weighted similarly, with each quarter valued at 45% and the final exam holding a value of 10%. A suggestion for courses not offering a final exam for semester courses is offered too. These calculations are easily incorporated into Infinite Campus, but much more important, these calculations are clearly defined for our students and community members.
We would like to end our presentation by sharing the implementation timeline for revised Policy 5421 if it were to receive movement from the committee and ultimately board approval. The revised policy would go into effect during the 26-27 school year, and you see here several bullets that we would implement. August 26, we would begin notification of policy changes to students, families, and staff. August 26, professional development for teachers and administrators upon their return for the new school year. First day of school, August 26, the approved policy would go into effect, and teachers would begin to use the percentage average method for grades. And August 26 and beyond, we would continue to share the new revised policy through things like orientations, back to school night, open houses. It would basically be an ongoing of reminders throughout the school year. Again, we would like to thank you for giving us time to discuss the work and recommendations of the committee for Policy 5421. At this time, the committee would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. And for your work as a committee. This has long been an issue that I know when I was running for this office, people were talking to me about, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I guess my first question is probably a question for our legal counsel. I see that the implementation timeline contemplates that this policy would not go into effect until August 2026. And it is possible that I am blind and have not caught it, but is that spelled out in the policy, and do we actually need to write that into the policy that it becomes effective August 2026 if the board adopts it prior to that timeline?
It should be placed in.
So we should add a clause that says the effective date. Okay. So that will be one recommendation. Any questions from the committee? Board Member Adair.
First, thank you so much for making this way more clear. I think that a lot of times, parents don't actually understand that the way the grading worked until their student actually fails a class or a quarter. And then you're like, shouldn't they have failed the whole thing? And you're like, no, there's these quality points. And you're like, that doesn't make sense. That's not how it was when I was in school. And so I think that this kind of brings it back to, concerns that the board has had for a while as we continue to look at just ensuring that our students are actually learning and we're grading appropriately to demonstrate the rigor that we know our curriculum has. So thank you for making it more clear and spending the time to work as a team of educators, administrators, principals. I hope that everyone, feels that this is the best thing put forward through all of your effort. I do have a question that's more, and maybe it's not able to be addressed right now, or even by you, this group. But my question is, have we thought about how this will impact our graduation rates? Because this will change the way that we are grading and how many classes and when students are technically failing a class. And so what kind of thoughts have been put in place, or what kind of strategy do you think will need to be put in place in order to make sure that our graduation rates continue to adjust around this and continue to go up? And again, that might not be a question for any of you. It might be Ms. Mosier over here, or to address in the future. But we have to think about that because the board has the goals and we monitor those goals for graduation rates. And we certainly know that obviously a change like this has an anticipated impact.
Would anyone like to attempt to address the question or concern? And was it something that you all had contemplated as well? Yeah.
I thought I would be able to pass that off to Dr. Harris, but it didn't work so well. One of the things that we did have some conversation about that, because it does look a little bit different, with the example that we gave of a student earning a 65% and then a 0% 1 quarter, they could pass. What we wanted to do was ensure that it was more reflective of what students are doing in the classroom and how they're being graded. As mentioned earlier, 5460.02 talks about when a family student is notified regarding the possibility of failing a class. We would lean into that area to really help parents be notified and make sure that they are aware as to what is going on, so that we're not getting to the point where students are not earning a high school diploma without ample notification and ample time to be able to make the adjustments before the grade is actually posted.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. I think the only thing I would add to that is we would definitely lean into, as you know, we do have the strategy of matriculation teams, making sure that they are very familiar with the process and that this remains at the forefront of their work. The work of those teams is to look at each and every student, so we would certainly expect them to continue to do that with a revised policy.
I don't know if it's appropriate to have the principals answer this question. Any thoughts on actual implementation at school level?
We actually had the conversation today in our building leadership meeting about the impact that it could have, especially if it's an attendance concern. And we are planning on rolling out some, not grading policies, but best practices, and making sure that it's an ongoing conversation. I think bringing up as matriculation committees, as well as our TBTs, that we are continually tracking these students on an every other week basis when the TBTs meet, because I think that it holds in value to go back to a percentage model, but it's a real, you brought up a real concern. You know, no policy is going to solve the problem of our kids learning. Our kids, we need to make sure that the teachers have the ample time to teach and our kids have the ample time to learn.
Ms. Keys.
I do have a question in regards to implementation. Do you think that it should be sooner because of the possibility of the impacts? Like, do you think notification to parents so that they are aware that this is coming should be a little bit sooner than, I think it says August the 2026? Just a question.
Good question. We did kind of toy with the idea of when we wanted to notify parents of the change. What we wanted to do is give ample amount of time for this to come to the policy committee as well as be approved by the board. We would be a little bit premature to allow this, to assume that this policy would change before the school year, which will have direct impact on how grades are being calculated currently.
I think that her question more was about just us talking about it and notification. I absolutely agree. It can't change before the end of the school year, actually July, right, when that Dr. Klein would be like, no, we got to start it in the new school year. But I think us being able to talk about it and talk about the impact, because our community, like you said, our parents need to understand, our students need to understand what this means. Because I think, you know, currently I have a high school student, and I know that there is talk like, oh, it's all right, you can just that quarter is, we got the next one, right? And so they have a mindset around it. So they need information about what that change is going to be. And so I think her point was more about communication rather than actual effective date.
Great point. So I think that it is possible to share earlier, but I think we would actually be sharing that information once it is approved by the board.
Any other questions or thoughts from any committee members? Well, it looks like you did a great job explaining it. It's pretty straightforward. And also, you know, thank you to you all and the entirety of the work group. Very thorough, very straightforward, which is very helpful in any policy. So with that, Hearing no other questions or discussion, I will go ahead and move that the committee move to adopt the policy with an added clause regarding the August 2026 implementation timeline.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any discussion before a vote? Hearing none, Mr. Williams, will you call the roll?
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Ms. Key?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Chair Ingles?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and move into item 3.3, which is the presentation on the draft of the drug and alcohol testing of classified employees without CDL licenses to transport students in alternative vehicles. That is a mouthful. And for this, we have Mr. John Dean here to speak with us. The draft policy addresses new policy requirements within the Ohio Administrative Code. These new regulatory changes are tied to the qualifications of classified drivers of alternative vehicles, including the need for drug and alcohol testing for non-DOT drivers. We are beyond the effective date of this legal change and are currently out of compliance as a district when it comes to policy. I want to be clear, just because your policy is out of date doesn't mean we've been violating the OAC necessarily, but our policy, the language of the policy, has been needing to be updated. So, Mr. Dean, I will go ahead and turn that over to you for further explanation.
Alrighty. Thank you, Chair Ingles, Board President Dr. Miranda, Board Member Adair, and the members of the Policy Governance Committee. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight to provide information on the draft of Policy 4162.01, drug and alcohol testing of classified employees without CDL license who transport students in alternative vehicles. First, I want to provide a brief history of the van driver classification. So on June 18th, 2024, the Columbus City Schools Board of Education adopted the van driver classification. This action was taken after the class specification was created by the Columbus Civil Service Commission, and important details were agreed to with the Columbus School Employees Association. At that time, a letter of agreement was executed between CSEA and Columbus City Schools. This agreement established many important elements of the employment of van drivers. For example, pay range and tier were agreed upon, as well as bid processes, span pay, and an hourly premium for bid unassigned drivers. Importantly, the parties agreed that the implementation of the new classification would be subject to discussions between the parties, and that a section on van drivers would be added to the collective bargaining agreement when we enter negotiations at the conclusion of the current agreement. As we discussed the creation of the van driver classification, the parties tried diligently to treat van drivers as much like bus drivers as we could, given the similarities of the duties between those classifications. Those discussions bring us to the current policy under consideration. This policy draft applies specifically to classified staff who drive vans and subjects them to the same drug testing provisions as bus drivers. This approach has been discussed with CSEA leadership, and the policy draft itself reflects the commitment made between CSEA and CCS to treat van drivers similarly to bus drivers. In addition to conferring with CSEA, we discussed this topic with leaders of Local 581 who represent the safety and security staff. These conversations were productive and yielded agreement regarding which specialist positions would be responsible for student transport, making this policy applicable to those positions. This policy, 4162.01, applies only to classified staff and has been vetted with the appropriate labor partners. A separate policy on this topic is being discussed with the Columbus Education Association, and while we do not have a written agreement with CEA on that policy, conversations with CEA have been productive, and we're nearing an agreement on a draft policy that applies to certificated staff who drives vans, completed soon. At this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have regarding draft policy 4162.01.
See, or is this
This is a new policy because it applies to non-CDL drivers that had not previously existed.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I'm going to pause and allow some flipping of pages for a second. Mr. Dean, it is my understanding that we have maybe some more conversation to have with our OPSI partners before this hits the board table, and we assure that we will do that, but that we feel like we're on a very good path.
Yes, that is correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Hearing no additional questions or concerns, I will go ahead and make the motion that the committee go ahead and recommend the movement of policy 4162.01 to the board after further deliberation with our OPSI partners.
I'll second, and then I have a question.
Any discussion? Question from Board Member Adair.
Sorry, it took me a second because I was pulling up the other policy. Is this very close or similar to 4162? The only difference is that one applies to CDL and this one is non-CDL. Like, is the language practically the same?
Practically, yes. In fact, it calls it out on page 2 that the drug and alcohol tests are to be conducted similar to federal DOT regulations. And it calls out the specific tests.
Is there anything that's different about this than the other one other than just saying non-CDL?
So not practically. It's the same testing process. The applicability is just what's different. It's the van drivers non-CDL with alternative vehicles, which are specifically not school buses.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Williams, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Ms. Keys?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Miranda?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Chair Ingalls?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. All right, so we will go ahead and move into section 4, which is the report outs on policies that will be recommended to the board for consideration. A couple of these we have discussed as a committee. Specifically, I want to call out the items 4.3 and 4.4. Really 4.3. We did have some discussion in the last Policy and Governance Committee meeting where there was some concern from some of our nurses. And so as we go through that, I will discuss, but the highlight is we talked with folks, and the folks that came to that meeting and expressed all the concern are very comfortable with the policy moving forward, and in fact, we're integrated into the actual development of the language and the changes in the policy. So feeling pretty good on that front, a little bit more work to do. With Policy and Governance Committee, what we try to do is bring forward what we think are more of the substantive discussions where we actually can have meaningful discussion as a committee made up of community members and reflective of the concerns of the community. And so the goal is that we have some discussion here about those policies. Honestly, anticipated a little more discussion in some of the first two, which is great. So this section in section 4 is really just kind of a notice that these will be coming to the board. When there is a state budget bill, there are a ton of new laws or tweaks to existing law that require school districts to do a giant slew of policy review and or changes. And so that happened with this last General Assembly, this last year. House Bill 96 passed, which was the state budget. And in that, there were a ton of policy changes. Now, those don't come with immediate deadlines. Some are faster than others, and so we attempt to comply with those as soon as possible. And then some give us a little bit of a grace period to get the policy in order that requires some work group and some attention from our legal team and others. And so we are now in that environment where we have a lot of policies to tackle. And so with that, we have worked with our legal team and our policy team to develop out a schedule over the next few months that will attempt to bring us into compliance with everything that happened in this last part of the General Assembly, and the changes that are coming down not only from the state level but also from the federal level very quickly, in order to keep us in compliance. In addition, the board occasionally has policies that it tasks really me as the chair to look at, and so sometimes those make sense to discuss as a committee, and sometimes they require a lot more work with the administration and with their staff before they can get ready to come to a committee like this. And so we have a few of those policies that we are working on in the background, but when they're ready, we will bring them out. So going through items in section 4, we have the promotion, retention, and placement policy. We are currently out of compliance with this policy. This policy requires immediate action at the board level to address a statutory change related to district retention practices. This update is necessary to become compliant with House Bill 96, the budget bill, which prevents districts from using attendance as a consideration in retention determinations. There is language in our current policy, including attendance as a factor, which must be removed. I do want to note this policy is the subject of ongoing work, quite a bit of ongoing work, and will return to the committee table with further recommendations from a team of content experts. Ms. Mosier, is there anything else you would like to add to that description?
Thank you. I believe you really covered the substance. I think similar to what the committee saw in the first two presentations, when a policy is as complicated as this one that includes promotion, acceleration, placement, and retention, it does require significant time for staff and administration to work on that policy. So tonight, the request is to act on the issue that is currently out of compliance and allow us an opportunity to return with a group like you saw earlier in the meeting to discuss some of the other updates that we believe are best practice and should be reviewed in the policy. But tonight we are asking that we focus specifically on the compliance issue. State law changed, and attendance should no longer appear in the policy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you all just wanted us to notice the committee on this and that it would go directly to the board as is for further discussion.
That's our request for this evening.
Okay, so no action needed or no discussion needed. You just are saying it's purely legal compliance. We're going to bring back a further developed version of the policy that we would want some substantive input on.
Correct.
Okay.
I know you said no.
Board Member Adair.
Sorry. So I'm just looking at the definitions, and I'm wondering why truant wasn't struck, since truant was struck from the paragraph, and truant doesn't show up anywhere else other than where it was struck. So that definition is now not needed because of the change in compliance, as well as unexcused absence. I'm not sure that shows up too. So there might be 2 more strikeouts.
Ms. Mosier, do you mind taking a look at that before it hits the board table?
We will take a look.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or immediate discussion? Okay. So we will go ahead and move on to item 4.2, which is the entrance requirements, policy 5112. This policy must be updated by March 20th, which is very, very soon, and would require us to take board action at our next board meeting. House Bill 114 includes language that alters kindergarten entrance date exams to be admitted without meeting early entrance criteria. The law now requires children to reach the age of 5 by the first date of instruction of the school year of admittance. That's direct quote from the law itself. So again, to be admitted without meeting early entrance criteria, the law now requires children to reach the age of 5, and the quote is, by the first day of instruction of the school year of admittance. The date in our current policy says September 30th, which obviously is out of compliance. This policy requires action at the board level by March 20th to address this statutory change. Do you have anything else to add, Ms. Mosier, or AI?
Right. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay, so just a notice on that required change, and that would be going to the board for immediate adoption. Nothing much that we can really discuss there. Item 4.3 is policy 5336, care of students with diabetes. So this one is a policy that we did discuss last time, and we had some robust testimony and concerns raised about the language of the policy. And so we are always grateful when our community members, and especially our staff who are working with our students every day, see this work out day to day, come in and kind of help us think through some of the concerns, and they did just that. And so I am so thankful for the team that worked with the nurses and the folks that came in at that time to express their concerns and to develop language that works, that they believe works, and that we also agree works. And so excited about that successful collaboration between the administration and our nursing staff representatives. We can report that this policy has their consensus and is ready for full presentation to the board for adoption. Prior to introducing it to the full board, the administration will revisit the policy recommendations with our union partners, especially in OPSI, to ensure that there is full understanding of the updates and that there's further opportunity for questions and feedback. Because one of the things that we have had discussion about is that we need to have further discussion about how this would affect the employees, such as the secretaries, who may be compelled by pieces of the language. And so we're still working through that a little bit. But we wanted to put it on the agenda tonight to make the committee members aware of the outcome and to share our intention that it will be moving to the board for further compliance in the future. It is a complete replacement of the current policy, and that replacement is required in some portion by state law changes. You're looking at me like.
Yeah, well, I'm just curious, because I think I recall last time there was discussion about delegation of insulin.
Yep.
It looks to me like this is saying insulin is now just by school nurses or.
Provided, yes, so if an
Is that
employee is
right?
going to give the insulin, that is probably not the technical term, I'm so sorry. It would be a school nurse, but students can what is it called? Self-administer, and who is supervising that process is still a conversation that we need to have with our OPSI representatives before this hits the board table.
Understood.
Just wanted to notify on that.
Thanks for the.
That's, at least that's as I understand the issue at this point. Is that correct, John? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
It says that, sorry, it may be if a school nurse isn't there, in absence of a school nurse, it may be administered by a school employee who is trained in diabetic care.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Yes, and so there's some question about how that, John, I don't want to get, or I'm sorry, Mr. Dean, I don't want to get over my skis here a little bit, but from what I understand of the concerns is they would like to have a little bit further dialogue about what is that training, what is the potential liability that could place on somebody like a secretary who may be in that position.
There's a section on insulin specifically, and then other diabetic medication.
Yeah.
So insulin, nurse only. Other medication could be appropriately trained.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to have further dialogue about that before it hits the board table.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor.
So is there an expectation that an administrative guideline will be developed for this? Because I noticed in the first policy, promotion, placement, retention, it does state in there superintendent shall develop administrative guidelines. It's absent to that language
absent.
in this current policy. So if the expectation is to develop that, you might want to include that statement in this policy.
Great call out. Yes, the intention is to develop administrative guidelines, but thank you for pointing that out, and that is something that we will note for the future.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Yes. For these that you're sort of sending directly to the board?
Yes.
Is there a date in mind at which they will be considered, or you have the discretion to send to the board whenever you feel ready?
Some of them whenever. The one that has the date that has to be is the entrance exam, because it has to be adopted by March 20th. So that has to be by next month, which is item 4.2. The rest of them are somewhat discretionary, although there is a sense of urgency around many of them. Looking at Ms. Mosier, who is telling me, yes, please.
Thank you.
Is it permitted for a parent to administer on school grounds? No.
Do you mind just coming up? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Sullivan. We do not allow anyone from the outside coming in to administer the medication because we might not know really what they gave them or how much they gave them, so we really want to have more control of that. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. And similarly, our use of a medication policy, policy 5330, is currently out of compliance. This policy has been on the committee agenda several times, but has not been acted upon due to the volume of our agenda items. That is why we're trying to really focus our discussions where we know we'll have time to do that. This policy must be adopted to comply with current law and to avoid inconsistency between other health services policies. This policy was modified to reflect the specific provision of House Bill 70, which became effective March 20th, or will become effective, became effective March 20th, 2025, to clarify how medications are defined. The law and draft policy now distinguishes prescription medications from over-the-counter medications. Further, the policy was revised to reflect the provisions of House Bill 206, which became effective April 9th, 2025, authorizing the storage and use of drugs used to treat seizures. So while this is another example of while the language of the policy is out of compliance, our practices may not be out of compliance. We just need to get the policy language to match what the practices are that we believe are compliant with state law. And so we're a little behind in getting that language together, but that is the goal here. Anything else to add from any of our staff who are here to assist? Okay. Mr. O'Connor.
Similar comment. It looks like a change is going to go from the superintendent shall prepare administrative guidelines to may. So
Yeah,
again, if the expectation is to do that, you might want to just sync that up.
Do we have an expectation that there will be administrative guidelines accompanying this?
My thought is, since it mentions training, you might want to have an administrative guideline that specifies what type of training, how often the training needs to be taken, et cetera.
Noted. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Chair Ingalls.
Yes.
I will just note that the there is misspelled in the first paragraph.
Yes.
Apologies for that being annoying.
There is one of those that don't quite fit the I before E except after C adage.
I know. Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. All right, anything else from the committee? Hearing none, thank you, team, and we look forward to seeing more. All right, so we will move on to item 5.1, which is the VCAP update. I forget who's doing this. Are you doing this, Ms. Mosier? Or Mr. Barnes?
They're current, as you may know, there is no current VCAP policy.
Yes.
But there are some other policies that relate to educational options and flexibility credits. And so the recommendation is to roll VCAP into those policies. And it's still being worked on, so there needs to be some work done.
And for those who may be viewing this meeting and maybe haven't had the opportunity to view the last meeting. Ms. Moser, can you quickly just give a brief update of what is VCAP? What are we talking about? What does it mean, but that it's not in any policy? Is that a problem? Where are we with all of this? And then, do we use VCAP now?
Sure.
That was about 12 questions.
I'll provide a summary and see how we do. What we refer to as VCAP stands for Virtual Credit Advancement Program. This is a program that is available in all of our high schools. Students are able to either recover or advance credit towards graduation. And again, this platform is available in all of our high schools. This year, we are using the Edmentum platform called Courseware, and we have seen a tremendous change. We are very comfortable with, and thank you to my colleague across the table in internal audit for helping us to really review the different platforms available to students. Again, we believe that Courseware is providing the rigor that our students should have when they are either recovering credit or, again, taking an advanced course using the electronic platform. We have received multiple questions during these committee meetings over the last few months. And so thanks to our legal team who has done research and determined that while Neola does not have a VCAP policy, multiple districts do speak to credit recovery or credit advancement in their educational options or credit flexibility policies. And so that is the path that we plan to take to, again, similar to what you saw in the first two presentations, develop a cross-office collaborative team to work on reviewing our credit flexibility policy and bringing to this committee a presentation for discussion. So again, we are comfortable with the Courseware platform. We do not intend to write a platform-specific policy, but rather to look at that credit flexibility educational options, those policies, to look at whether we should have policy language that we would update in either of those spaces. So to the question of do students use it, yes, we have approximately 12,000 high school students, and in the last year, approximately 5,000 students have used the platform for either credit recovery or an advancement course.
Catherine, what should we be calling this other than VCAP? Because that's not what this is anymore. That was very platform specific, but we keep saying that. And so what, can you teach us a new phrase or words that we should be calling this type of educational opportunity?
So credit flexibility and or educational options. That's the language that we will begin to socialize. Thank you for that.
Credit flexibility or
educational options.
Educational options, thank you. And so to reiterate, VCAP is not going to exist as VCAP, but there still will be opportunities for the things that VCAP provided, correct, in a different form or on a different platform.
So we certainly have a credit advancement program, a virtual credit advancement program that will continue. I think the questions here as to whether there would be a VCAP policy, we are suggesting that we not create a Columbus City School specific VCAP policy, but rather we look at what within our educational options and credit flexibility policies, whether there's language there that we need to strengthen or clarify for students who are using the virtual program. And we expect that, similar to the first two work groups, we will need a couple of months, and so we would plan to come back to this committee later this spring with an update.
Any other questions or concerns from the committee? All right. Hang on, thank you so much for that update. So that is the agenda. We did a very good job on time today. Thank you so much to the committee. I'm so thrilled that we have our two new committee members and Dr. Lucky with her, she's established now. She's on her second committee meeting. And then we have some, tenured folks here. So appreciate all of your work and effort. We will be adding an additional Policy and Governance Committee meeting in between now, or we are going to be attempting to add a committee meeting in between now and June. And so we have asked for availability via email, so check your email for that and please let me know your availability. But for the public, there will be an additional public Policy and Governance Committee meeting in between now and the next scheduled meeting in June. And so as soon as we have that date, we will announce that publicly and put out that notice. And again, the reason is there's just a lot of work to do right now and a ton of work groups going on, a lot of things happening as a result of administrative code changes, revised code changes, whatever's happening at the federal level. And the things that we need here in this district in order to move forward and to achieve the board's goals. So, with that, I appreciate everybody's time and effort today, and we will go ahead and call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned.